Hello students, today we will take up 10th chapter in Education Indian and American written by Anurag Mathur. So this is an extract from Anurag Mathur's novel The Inscrutable Americans. Gopal is the protagonist of the novel and he has gone to America for his further studies. He is an intelligent young man and good at his subject, but America is full of surprises for him because the culture there is more relaxed and egalitarian. The relationship between students and teacher is pretty informal. The language spoken is also different in its usage and meaning because Gopal, who has grown up on English, which he read in books, is at times lost and confused. The relationship between boys and girls is also somewhat different. This particular passage contrasts the two systems of education, that is, the Indian and the American. Both have their individual strengths. The Indian system ensures that it lays a good foundation, while the American is more conducive to growth and innovation. And one of the reasons behind the brain drain to USA is the openness of American society and its educational system. Brain drain is also talked about in this passage. So, coming to the chapter, we will see that Gopal had devoted himself to his work, though he knew it was an false dream. He thought he sensed his mind flower and expand. The Indian system of education had drilled his mind and beaten it until it was a tight, rigid mass laid upon the fundamentals of science. Means he was learned, taught to learn the fundamentals, the basics of science, and until they sank deep into his subconscious mind. Now, from this unshakable base or foundation, he was able to make sorties that his American colleagues could imagine trying and sure as they were about the basics. For the first time, he began to learn the joy of analysis rather than retention, and based upon the core of fundamentals that had been hammered into him, he experienced with leaps of logic. He paused certainly, and through his experiences, he started enjoying new way of learning. He found encouragement and his mind soared. He felt himself flying high up. For the first time in his life, he gloried in studying. And when he came out of India, he felt he had got the best of an educational system where the early years instilled discipline and basics, but the subsequent repetition of the same crippled minds that were ready to take off. In America, he found that encouragement was very important, and American students seemed unable to utilize the truly astonishing opportunities that their educational system offered at higher levels. He found himself studying late in the library not because he wanted higher grades but because he was enjoying it. He felt that his grasp over his subject had become so thorough that he was able to go back to the fundamentals, to those dragons of his earlier days, and look at them with a new eye. Why were they constructed as they were? What was the intent and what the result was? Could they be improved upon? These questions often came to his mind, and it would be a scandal to his Indian teachers but they had done their job and Gopal had left them behind. He often considered amusedly with what horror they would react to his questions and the viewpoints he held now. So we find this one of the basic difference between Indian and American system of education. Here students are free to ask questions. They didn't care. The teachers here didn't care even if the questions were insane. In fact, the crazier the better, so long as they were also intelligent. Even the students, astonishingly, didn't seem to resent his clearly superior abilities, and at least he amended, most of them didn't. They said they enjoyed his sallies and they spoke to him, they asked to study with him and expressed their admiration to him with a frankness that was staggering. So, here again, another aspect he comes to know that he is being appreciated, admired, encouraged for his work, whereas in India he was never done so. In India, he sighed with real pain. He could write the definitive book on envy. Their people are more envious, and for centuries, outsiders had exploited this feeling of envy and they had divided and ruled for centuries. And even today, rumors of a person's success, they caused demonic leaps of fury in the hearts of everyone who heard about it. The immediate response was to either belittle him or, if possible, to find ways to actively impede him. So instead of encouraging, people in India, they feel jealous when they hear of somebody's success and they try to belittle him in some way or the other. Now, using a simple contrast, Gopal gives one more example. He says that he had received more compliments in 1 month in America on his abilities and his work than he had received in all his life in India put together. And then he says this is the main reason behind brain drain, because it wasn't often any longer out of a desire for a more comfortable life in America, but it was also for the sheer bliss of friendly, supportive, well equipped, encouraging work environment, which is important. It could be to get away from the fierce, eternal, all encompassing hatred with which colleagues in India battled each other and everybody else, usually for no discernible reason other than the habit. And now, transplanted to America, they were transformed into paragons of efficiency and tolerance. Now, he closed his books as the lights in the library began to be turned on and off, and it was a sign that it was going to close. So he stepped out into the night. The wind seemed to have a colder thrust to it than usual, and he had hardly walked 50 feet when he felt a soft white dandelion rest on his cheek. He brushed it away and it was melted and it felt cold. He looked up and there were many of them floating gently downward. They looked like the little blossoms of a tree, but when they touched him, they turned to water. So now Gopal understood it was snow which was coming down. He had never seen such snow before except in photographs, and now he was experiencing this snowfall for the first time in his life. He had not realized that it danced with such joy through the air with the beauty of a ballet dancer, and it touched upon him as hesitant as a child. And as Gopal raced under each flake trying to catch it in his mouth, He could have sworn each was alive as it playfully tried to escape him and settled on his hair or his coat. One enterprising fellow made his way to the back of his neck and rested there for a quiet while. So Gopal ran about and he tried to catch these snowflakes as he could, but it was not an easy job. Some jumped into his nose, another on his jaw, but it was exhilarating. He dashed about, his overcoat flapping, sucking in the air, and he now felt like a miraculous new drink. He snapped at a white flake, leaping up for it, and his teeth clicked on themselves. A flake fell on his eye and stung. He blinked, trying to clear it, and then brushed his sleeve over the eye. When he could see again, he saw with embarrassment that one of the security guards was sitting nearby on his scooter and had been watching him doing all these activities. He was burly, cheerful, red-faced man, and Gopal wondered what he made of the sight of a foreign student leaping like a deer at midnight on the lawn attacking snowflakes.